Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and a quick review of the Lyrix Axes. This is a levitating or a floating Bluetooth speaker that offers supposedly powerful hi-fi sound. In addition, it's unique because the speaker itself not only rotates when it's spinning and floating, but it also has a magnetic charger component. So it doesn't need to be plugged into power to separately charge the actual speaker module when it runs low. That means that it's also using the Qi wireless standard, so you can actually use the dock to charge a smartphone that also has wireless Qi enabled when you're not having the speaker hover on top of it. So it's quite a few different uses. The LED lights can also be programmed so that they can strobe and have a different color for various songs and musics. So it is a pretty interesting, innovative design. In terms of pricing, it sells on Amazon for as low as 30 bucks, depending on the seller. And the retail value for this thing was originally around 200, so it's come down quite a lot. And it might be one of the lesser expensive levitating speakers that you can find at the moment. So the orb itself, it has very strong earth magnets, which means that you can detach it from the magnetic base and then put it onto a door or onto a car, and it's going to stick there, or even on a fridge. So again, there's just so many different utilities and ways to use this that is more unique than your typical speaker. Otherwise, because it has a round design, of course, the sound is able to dissipate and fill up a smaller space better, so it's 360 degrees. Right on top, we have the orb, which is a speaker module that has a grill facing upwards, and there's also the LED light strip, which can again be reprogrammed for various colors. Let's take a closer look at this, which is essentially a dedicated speaker, in a second. Otherwise, there is access to the charger, so it does require a proprietary prong because the levitating base does require electricity for it to kind of magnify the magnetic waves, and so this is a process again that takes a little bit of extra power. In addition, it has to power the wireless Qi for the charging standard, so that's why you need to use the external power supply. Underneath here we have finally just the base, which is actually quite large, as you can guess from the size of the packaging here. There is an instruction manual that tells you how to set it up for the very first time, which could be worth a read because you do need to position the speaker in a way so that it will not falter when it's trying to levitate. And that's it. I should mention that this particular unit, the levitation, is not going to be quite as high or dramatic as in a previous generation model that does not come with wireless Qi charging. What that means is because of wireless charging, you never really have to let the speaker kind of leave the dock. It can consistently be floating here, and it will always be outputting music as long as the dock is plugged into power, which is pretty cool. But at the same time, the contact between this and the pad needs to be slightly slimmer. Taking a look at the base here, it's made out of a polycarbonate plastic frame on the edges, but then the band here is crafted out of aluminum, so it does have a pretty solid construction. There are chamfered edges also on the top here, so again, fairly premium in terms of build, as expected from the retail cost originally of $200. And there's also LED lights which can additionally glow and match the orb's light ring, which is pretty cool. Here we have kind of a protective film that is protecting the Qi kind of wireless part, and if you had a wireless charging phone, this is what it would look like when docked and charging it. So it makes for, again, a pretty elegant design on top of a surface, but definitely larger, much larger than your average wireless Qi charger by far, and heavier as well. The back features a dedicated USB port, so you can even charge another phone using a traditional USB socket if you wanted to. So that's a secondary utility. That's a proprietary charging AC port, and then the back here just features a few ventilation fans and rubber feet that prevents it from sliding around on a surface or onto a desk. Here's what the speaker looks like when it's successfully levitated on the dock. When turned on, you can see these LED lights that is basically used for position indication. So when you first are aligning it, you have to drop it off slowly, and then if it gets too close to one particular light, that light will actually turn off to tell you that you need to try to move it in the opposite direction. And through these indications, you have a easier ability to perfectly align this and for it to eventually float. It definitely is a process that takes about a minute or two for you to figure out. We are now in the mode where the LED lights are turned on with the orb, and you can see it gently rotates and bobs along. If you give it a quick spin, it will be continuously spinning for as long as the speaker is on the dock, so it's actually a pretty interesting effect. And the light ring here will gently fade through all 7 different colors, and it will repeat once and once again. It's pretty cool if we dim the lights, and makes for a decent night light / mood light. And because the orb itself has this very reflective plastic surface, you can see that it also reflects these base red LEDs and creates a very interesting look. So indeed it is hovering. It's easier to see at this lower angle, which is why we've changed the camera position. And if I put something like a piece of paper underneath, you can see it easily glides through, almost like one of those magic tricks. So a very interesting effect. And as long as it's on the actual base itself, it remains fairly stable. So the surface here is also very reflective, so again it magnifies the effect of it really just seeming to float in thin air. During operation, it does get slightly warm, and by warm I mean not hot, but you definitely notice the temperature if you put your hands on the base, so that's something to really quickly keep in mind. The lights themselves, again, it's pretty even in terms of the glow, and on top, this is what the angle kind of looks like if it's floating from various degrees. It is actually strong enough in terms of the levitation for you to put small objects on the top. So here we have, again, a more complicated kind of origami spinning round and round. So it almost becomes kind of like a display stand of sorts for smaller objects. Definitely really fun to play around with and see what things you can even stack on top of this speaker. And once again, from this angle, it's a little bit easier to see that, again, paper and objects which glide through won't interfere with the overall process. Now there's actually another mode. If you don't want to look at the multicolor fade, you can actually go through and change the color so that it only corresponds to one specific tone. So for instance, matching it to be red, I can tap on it once more for it to be blue, green. It's going to be a lighter shade of blue, and then go back to red again. So you can play around with several different effects. It doesn't just have to be that one specific preset fade. Alright, so pausing the music there, I guess the takeaway from the audio quality is actually it's surprisingly good. It's not just, a gimmick. This is not just a speaker that looks cool, but the sound, surprisingly, for a mono speaker is really good. We were only about 25% in terms of volume, but you could hear that the sound is actually quite clear. Furthermore, mids and highs actually sound pretty clean, and surprisingly, there's even a little bit of bass. So sure, it's not earth-shattering, and it's not going to please bass heads per se, but it is present, and when we heard the bass drop previously in that sample, it came across as fairly prominent. So actually a really good speaker for playing back music. It's going to be tremendously better than any speaker built onto a phone, tablet, or computer, and gets quite loud. And also, again, for watching movies as well as listening to music casually, it really does work quite well. So surprisingly, a really strong Bluetooth speaker as it is for a small size. So if we want to kind of undock it from here, we can see that the speaker itself can still be used to play music as is, just like a traditional mini speaker. And from here we also have the ability, of course, to dock it onto anything that's magnetic, since it is, as aforementioned, very strong in terms of its pull. So for instance, if we put it onto a lamp here, you can see that it will stay placed without any issues. So you can really use this on a wide range of surfaces around the house, in the car, So that's a Lyrix Axes, a floating or levitating Bluetooth speaker that not only looks really cool, but actually has a lot of practical features going for it. The sound quality for a relatively small speaker is actually quite good in terms of clarity, and it also fills up sound evenly across a room or space because it's levitating and the speaker is on top, so it produces 360-degree sound. Furthermore, the lights are customizable. They add a very cool touch that is slightly more unique than other floating speakers on the market, and the fact that it also wirelessly charges, or it can act as a standard Qi charging dock, is another plus. So again, there's a lot of things that you can do with this. It's a great conversation starter, and again, at this reduced price point, I think that it makes for a really strong gadget for those who may have everything. So you can check out more details about this in our official written review, but for now, we give this 2 thumbs up, both as a speaker and as a conversation starter. Thanks for watching this video here at OS Reviews.